Okay, so if I had my way, Suicide Squad would have been like number 10 in a connected film universe of DC Comics characters. It was a colossal mistake to introduce villains like Captain Boomerang before you give us his corresponding hero. Flash had literally a line of dialogue in Dawn of Justice, and he has another line in this movie. So I guess they figured that, plus the 2 years the Flash TV series had been going by the time this movie came out, would be enough introduction to the Flash. But I don't think it is. I really wish the people calling the shots had waited on this movie. Do a Flash movie, an Aquaman movie, give us at least some of the main heroes of this world, and then you can do a quirky movie showcasing the villains. But even though I am willing to completely rework the premise of a movie, like I did with Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, I am not going to rearrange the release order of these movies when I'm fixing them. So since Suicide Squad was the third movie in the DC Extended Universe, that means that I am doing my fix for it now, even though I maintain that it was a mistake to do this movie this early. And even though this movie barely references the plot of the previous movies in the DCEU, I just want to remind you guys that my fix for this movie will reflect my fixes for the other movies in the DCEU. So basically, remove the 3 seconds of references to Superman being dead. Okay, so this movie is garbage. The plot is incoherent, and it would be a compliment to call the characters even one-dimensional. Other than a handful of lines of dialogue that I thought were funny outside of the context of the rest of the movie, I don't think there's a single thing that actually works about this film. The first thing that needs addressing is that there are too many characters in this movie. Look at this DVD cover. There are 11 characters in this image, and all of them are being introduced to general audiences for the first time. Yes, people have seen other versions of the Joker before, but since Leto's version is so drastically different than the ones that came before, this might as well have been a brand new character. Now, I will give Slipknot a pass. This movie goes to the well that Arrow Season 2 and Batman Assault on Arkham did, where you have a character who doesn't think that Waller will blow their head up, and then they get their head blown up. But that's still 10 characters that we're getting introduced to for the first time. Think of your favorite movies. The first Star Wars. You know how many characters that movie really focuses on? 4. Back to the Future. 4. The first Pirates of the Caribbean. 3. Monsters Inc. Just 2. I don't know much about juggling, but I am going to bet it's easier to juggle 2 or 3 balls than it is to juggle 10. And to make matters worse, this was director David Ayer's first big budget movie. His 2 movies that he did immediately before Suicide Squad were Fury and Sabotage, which had budgets of $68 million and $35 million respectively. Suicide Squad had a budget of $175 million, which means the studio is much more invested in this thing, and they are very worried that they are going to lose a lot of money. And so they felt the need to try to air quotes help David Ayer. So they got the company that puts together trailers, and they did the final cut of this movie. Not only is this like getting someone who doesn't have very much juggling experience to juggle 10 balls, but it's like having someone standing beside that person playing very loud music and throwing things at the juggler in an effort to air quotes help them. So what I would do is cut this cast down considerably. Remove Katana, since she has only, I think, 2 lines of dialogue, and the character herself doesn't actually do anything in this movie. Her evil soul-sucking sword is used on the bad guy at the end, but Katana herself is useless. I'd honestly get rid of all of the squad members except for Harley Quinn and Deadshot, and you could explore and develop their characters over the course of the movie, and maybe bring them back in later movies like they are planning to do with Harley Quinn in the upcoming Birds of Prey movie. I guess if we're keeping Will Smith as Deadshot, I would want him to change what he's doing here. I can't tell if Will Smith doesn't understand the character, or if the sloppy editing of this movie makes his character inconsistent, but I don't like how much of an anti-hero Deadshot is portrayed as. Truthfully, all of the characters in this movie are wildly inconsistent, but since I would be ditching most of them, I figured I just needed to address Deadshot here. Moments like when he has a chance at freedom and he decides not to shoot at Harley Quinn, that doesn't ring true to me, even as someone who isn't very familiar with the Suicide Squad of the comics. Also, I don't like that Deadshot has a relationship with his daughter. I like the thing from the TV series Arrow, where his missions in the squad means that she gets money, but he knows that he is a terrible person, and if he was part of his daughter's life, it would be worse for her. You can fill out the rest of the team with a whole bunch of no-name villains like Black Orchid or Magpie, characters who we are not meant to get attached to or see some kind of character arc from, because they are going to get killed off over the course of the movie. It still boggles my mind that even with literal end-of-the-world stakes, that this movie ended with so few casualties. Slipknot and El Diablo are the only named characters who die, and Slipknot is barely a named character since he has less than 3 minutes of screen time. What I liked about the animated movies, Batman Assault on Arkham and Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, is that nobody is safe. Both movies end with most of the team dead. They should have done that with this movie. Kill off everyone on the squad except for Harley Quinn and Deadshot. If you think a character is too valuable to kill off and you want to save them for future movies, then don't use them in this movie. Actually, I don't care which villains you use. The more D-list, the better. Killer Moth, Tin-Eyed Man, Black Bison. The DC Universe is full of minor DC Comics villains that you could kill off in this movie and nobody would care. You know how the X-Men movies do a pretty good job on focusing on Wolverine and Rogue, but they don't give much screen time to Cyclops and Storm? That would be what I would want to do here, except it would be justified since we're going to kill off most of the team and start from scratch if you get a Suicide Squad sequel. Something I like about some of the squad's other appearances outside of the comics is that the stakes are high enough that you care about what's going on, but they're not end-of-the-world stakes, which is what you've got going on in this movie. In this day and age, when you get 5 superhero movies a year, you hear people complain about how a lot of them have some giant beam of energy in the sky, and the hero has to stop it from doing a thing. Now, that's never actually bothered me that much. Truthfully, I never even noticed it until other people started pointing it out. The first X-Men movie, the first Iron Man, Avengers, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman. This trope gets around, but even after seeing it, it never really bothered me. That's like complaining about horses in a Western. It's part of the genre. But this is honestly the one movie that should not have a big energy beam in the sky or the end of the world at stake, especially when most of these guys, their powers consist of baseball bats and bullets. Don't put this team up against an ancient goddess. So that's my next big change. We're getting rid of the Enchantress completely, and the squad will be going after the Joker instead. That honestly fixes so many problems with this movie. Instead of putting a bomb in Enchantress's head like Waller did with literally everyone else on the squad, she has her heart in a briefcase, and she'll stab it if the Enchantress steps out of line. But then when she does step out of line, Waller stabs it, and it doesn't do any good at all. And then how does the squad stop Enchantress? They take her heart and crush it, after Waller already tried destroying her heart and it didn't work. But this time it does work. This is complete nonsense. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Jared Leto's performance in this movie, so making him the main antagonist is going to be a problem here, but I don't think it's entirely Leto's fault. I think we can blame the slapdash editing of this movie, at least partially. After the release of the movie, Leto said that they could still make an entire film out of all the stuff that was cut here. Now, I am assuming that he was being hyperbolic, and that what he really meant was that they cut most of his performance here. But even if the editing was much better in this movie, Jared Leto's performance is still way too creepy. It's not funny enough. Joker should be equal parts funny and scary. Jack Nicholson, I actually like what he's doing in that movie. Unlike a lot of people looking back at that film, they say that he's just playing Jack Nicholson, but I don't really agree with that. But it's not scary enough. Heath Ledger, I like what he's doing a lot, but it's not funny enough. And neither is Leto's Joker. They should have taken a look at what Mark Hamill was doing in the DC animated universe. He's got a lot of knee slappers in his performances over the years, but he's also genuinely terrifying in many of his appearances. Now, you could keep Joker's appearances in this movie to a minimum, and I think that would help some. Have him show up at the beginning to steal a nuclear bomb or something like that. This would justify Waller specifically choosing Harley Quinn for this mission because she is intimately familiar with the Joker. Then, throughout the bulk of the movie, you can have Joker show up in Harley's nightmares or something like that, with maybe an occasional national broadcast where he threatens to blow up a bomb. Then he can show up in the final 15 minutes where the bomb gets defused, but he escapes to terrorize another day. You'll still want to rein in Leto's performance a little, both on and off camera, but this way you can leave it up to the audience's imagination just how scary he is when Harley wakes up screaming from another nightmare. But then, if Leto can pull it off, you can also see how Harley got pulled in by his charm and wit when they finally are on screen together in the climax. Now, I also think you shouldn't have the excessive tattoos and the grills in the teeth, which caused a huge backlash against this movie before it even came out, and deservedly so. I think this design is just kinda silly. I'm not saying the Joker has to look like he does in the comics. Heck, there's been several designs of the Joker in the comics, even one with lots of tattoos. I remember seeing the first image of Heath Ledger's Joker and I wasn't a fan, but then that performance won me over, even if it isn't exactly the kind of Joker that I want. It was still a good performance, but Leto had the misfortune of delivering a performance that wasn't exactly what people wanted, and it was paired up with a weird design that nobody wanted either. We will still have Rick Flag acting as Amanda Waller's eyes and ears on the team, but without the badly written love story between him and the Enchantress, Joel Kinnaman can focus on the tough soldier guy stuff. And with the threat being the Joker stealing a bomb or something like that, it's no longer Waller personally being responsible for the almost end of the world, which makes her look equal parts evil and stupid. I don't mind Waller blowing up a bad guy's head to show that she means business, especially if innocent lives are at stake. Heck, I'm okay with her blowing up one of the squad people if they're close enough to the Joker and she thinks that she can take him out that way. But far too often, even outside of this movie, Waller seems perfectly okay with killing innocents, and I don't care for that interpretation. And that's about it. I know this one is not as detailed as some of my other fixes, but these changes didn't require nearly as much explanation as some of my other fixes have. But I was surprised how just 2 pretty substantial changes could potentially have made this movie much more watchable. But what did you guys think? Did you like my suggestions, or would you have rather seen something different? Let me know in the comments, and if you can think of any other movies that you would want to see me tackle, drop those in the comments also. I won't make any promises, but if it's a movie that I have, and one that I can think of something that I would have rather seen, then I will definitely do a video on it. As for my next fix video, the next movie in the DC Extended Universe is Wonder Woman, but I don't know if I will be doing a video on that movie just yet. I don't remember having enough problems with it the last few times that I watched it to justify doing an entire video on it, so just keep an eye out on this space to see if I will be doing a video on Wonder Woman, or if I'll be jumping right into the Justice League movie. In the meantime, I do other videos, so be sure to check those out also. Until next time, catch you later. Have a good day.